watching the India Development Debate. I'm Tamanna Inamdar. It's been an eventful and important day in Parliament. The controversial amendment to RTI Act has been passed in the Rajya Sabha as well, bringing the changes into law. The amendments now effectively give the government control over the tenure and salaries of information commissioners and the Chief Information Commissioner, a move that has seen RTI activists as well as opposition leaders up in arms. The bill was finally passed in the Rajya Sabha despite the ruling party lacking a majority, with the help of some regional parties and a walkout by the Congress and others. It's an important bill, and the fact that the government has managed to pass it says a lot about the state of the opposition in its last bastion, the Rajya Sabha. It also leads to some key questions, like did the Congress essentially give the government a walkover on the RTI bill? Are opposition concerns on dilution of RTI valid? Will government control on salaries and tenure actually dilute the RTI? And will the Information Commissioner continue to discharge duties as per law now that the bill has been amended? Before we begin the debate, let's first play out for you a glimpse of the arguments over the bill in the Rajya Sabha today.
The suggestions are well taken and the amendments can be taken up if required, but let us at least, we have not discussed, we are drawing certain conclusions. No, we are making amendments, we are making the amendments, we are making amendments without understanding the gist of the bill.
The last 27 minutes, we are seeing Parliament, every rule being rewritten and thrown away into the dustbin. The motion is being moved because Parliament has to scrutinize bills, scrutinize. We need to study. This is not a T20 cricket match. Public has to hear. So I move my motion. I move it.
So to answer some of these key questions, we're joined by a panel today. But first, let me go across to Rajiv Gowda, who is, of course, a member of Parliament in the Rajya Sabha from the Congress Party and is joining us now to explain what happened. Mr. Gowda, good evening. Thank you for speaking with us on the India Development Debate. Let me start by asking simply, why did you walk out? Did the Congress effectively help the BJP in passing the bill?
Not at all. Actually, what happened was that there were multiple violations of parliamentary procedure today. Okay? Let me just start with that story. So the first thing is that many of us, there were multiple motions to send this bill to the select committee of the Rajya Sabha. So normally, before you debate the particular bill and you actually have a vote on this motion, should it go to select committee for further parliamentary scrutiny, or should we discuss it in Parliament and then vote at the end of the whole process? Government chose to press, use some precedent, something like that, which said, you can vote on everything at the same time, which is pointless. Why have a discussion if you're then going to send it to select committee? Anyway, so, the opposition, not just the Congress, many parties, the Trinamool, multiple parties joined us and we protested, saying this is not the right way to do it. Then the government reached out and said, okay, let's work out a compromise, let's have a vote, and we'll settle it one way or the other. What happened at that point was that as a result of that compromise, the disruption of the attempt to disrupt was history, and basically everyone spoke and very, very constructively. And at the end of it, there was a call for votes, what we call division. At that point, basically the chair said that since there were many union members who had just been sworn in today, we would go with paper ballots rather than the electronic voting machine that we had. All right. So then, when the paper ballots were circulated, one member of the TDP who had defected to the BJP fairly recently, he was seen, actually before the voting, the ministers were trying to canvass and put pressure on various opposition parties to support the government stand. And at that point, basically one TDP member went, during the voting process, went and was talking to members and instructing them how to vote. And then he actually took their ballots, collected them, and we saw him with them in his hand. Now, that's not the process. basically. There is, staff who distribute the voting slips, collect the voting slips, etc. And this whole thing seemed very, very fishy and vague. And therefore,
I understand all the reasons. I understand all the reasons, Mr. Gowda. My point is very simple, and I ask the question again. Effectively, you've allowed the government to pass it because you walked out. The numbers were then reduced, and they had the numbers. It's something that you've been, and by you, I mean your party has been vehemently opposing. Didn't you help them out? Was that the plan all along?
I don't know, because we stepped out. I don't know the count of the votes. The first vote that actually took place was a motion to send it to select committee. So I actually don't know the count on what exactly happened, but it might be that the government had the numbers. Because it was, the house is fairly full, so it should have been very, very evenly poised. No, but basically this, walkout is an often used parliamentary procedure to express, disgust and opposition to a particular move, and to ensure that the legitimacy that comes from a vote or from having the opposition participate, that is taken away to some extent. So it's a gesture. It's a standard parliamentary.
Effectively, though, Mr. Gowda, the government seems to have no opposition in the Rajya Sabha. And I want you to comment on that position and what we're going to see from here on, because there are other bills as well which the opposition parties have been protesting against. Will those also pass easily?
The government, we already passed 14 bills. In previous sessions, when the opposition was in a majority, we even passed constitutional amendments. That's because legislation happens by some amount of mutual consultation and consensus. If we have no major problems with, aspects of a bill, if the bill has gone through parliamentary scrutiny of standing or select committees, then it's a very cooperative atmosphere. And what is happening right now is that the government is, it's sort of the brute majority in the Lok Sabha has gone to its head, and therefore it's trying to push through and steamroll, legislation through in the Rajya Sabha. They may well have the numbers with friendly parties as well, but that's not how we function normally. We like to have, respect for procedures and consensus and parliamentary scrutiny, etc. So it's not a good signal if this is how they're going to run the House. We will, our numbers may slowly be less than theirs, but we will continue to raise our voice.
No, but that your numbers are currently enough to make a difference, but it hasn't today, which is why I'm asking you this question again, Mr. Gowda. The budget session has also been extended now to the 7th of August because the government is clear it wants to pass a number of bills. Triple Talaq has been passed in the Lok Sabha today. You guys have been opposing it. Do you have the numbers to block it in the Rajya Sabha?
We are not in the business of stopping legislation, except for certain legislation. For example, there are multiple parties, including the Congress, which are strongly opposed to the Triple Talaq Bill in its current form. And therefore, we will come together and you will see how we will deal with that when the time comes.
So my question though, do you have the numbers? Because if parties, especially like the YSR Congress, the TRS and others are going to, and the BJP are going to support the government on key legislation like they have today, then the government can push in a lot of legislation that it means to, even if it's controversial, even if the opposition stands up against it. Basically, the last bastion for the opposition now has become irrelevant, isn't it?
Actually, that is a bill that has many parties are opposed to it, because that's a bill that once the Supreme Court has outlawed something, there's no logic in creating one more law to retrace that and to turn a civil offense into a criminal offense. The whole problem of maintenance for women when their husbands or ex-husbands or whatever are in jail. All these sorts of problems exist. It's just, it's an attempt by the government to create divisions, to try and send signals to particular, trying to create a vote bank, things like that. it's just not something that makes eminent. And why is it only for one religion? This is a constitution that's secular.
That's not the point. Again, you're giving me arguments against the triple talaq bill. That's not what I'm asking you. I'm asking you, do you have the numbers to block it?
I'm telling you, please wait and see, and we'll show you.
We'll wait and see then. That was Congress MP Rajiv Gowda over there talking about, how it will all work out in Parliament. Let me go to my panel now. I'm joined this evening by Tuhin Sinha, the spokesperson from the BJP, Sanjay Jha, who's joining us today in the capacity of a political analyst. The Congress party is still not officially sending any spokespersons. He's joining us as a political analyst. I have Wajahat Habibullah, former Chief Information Commissioner, Tathagat Satpathy, former Member of Parliament from the BJD and currently an independent journalist, Manisha Priyam and Sanjeev Srivastav, both political analysts, also joining us today. Mr. Habibullah, I want to come to you first with a comment on what we've seen. If now the RTI Amendment Act has been passed, what does it mean for the RTI?
Well, what it means for the RTI is that it greatly weakens the functioning of the RTI. The information commissions are the supreme authority, the last court of appeal under the Right to Information Act. And from there, the only relief that you get or change that can be brought to a decision of the Information Commission is through recourse to the Constitution and going in PIL either under under Article 226 or under Article 32 of the Constitution. So the independence of the Information Commissions will now necessarily be impaired. Why? Because of the fact that most of the cases that appear before the Information Commission, 90% in fact, concern information that is sought from the government. Now, the result of the amendment is, the consequence of the amendment is that the person who is actually going to be a party to the case is also going to be the deciding authority for the salaries and the tenures of the information commissioners. Now, I don't say that the government is going to misuse it, and we have the assurance of the Honourable Minister of State and indeed the Prime Minister that it is not going to be misused, and that the change is not so radical that it will alter the law. Unfortunately, the wording of the amendment is such that it takes these appointments and the tenure out of the purview of Parliament and places it in the hands of the government, which, as I said, is a party to the case, is a party to most of the cases. Therefore, it will necessarily
my question is very simple.
Information commissioners vulnerable to pressure.
Yeah, you've said that earlier, that you've been worried. Now that it has happened, do you believe that despite the commitments by the government, the information commissioners going forward will be vulnerable to pressure? Because like you said, the queries are about what the government is up to, and the government is now effectively the paymaster. Do you believe it will actually impact their work and the bill? Yes, Mr. Habibullah, can you hear me? I think I've lost his line. Let me come to Tuhin.
Oh, is the question to me?
Yes, I'll come back to you, sir. Let me come to Tuhin. Yeah, I'll come back to you, Mr. Habibullah.
Who is the question?
Yes, it was for you, but I'll come back to you now. Let me come to Tuhin Sinha on some of the concerns that Wajahat Habibullah have raised this evening. And Tuhin, these are concerns that not just opposition parties, these are RTI activists, and in fact a former Chief Information Commissioner on this panel is raising. Even though the bill has been passed now, and clearly the BJP had some clever floor management today, do these concerns still not remain about a law which has actually shone the light on so many scams and corruption, and in fact politically has aided your party very well when the UPA was in power?
Well, Tamanna, the amendment which has been brought about is an enabling legislation. The changes which have been effected are with reference to Section 27, Section 13 and Section 16 of the Act, which by no way impacts the autonomy or independence of the Information Commission. I think it's an administrative, it needs to be seen as an administrative reform, which the purpose of which is to further streamline the functioning of the Information Commission. Ideally, these provisions should have been at the time when the Act came into being. There is absolutely no evidence to suggest, or there is absolutely nothing in it to suggest that it will actually impact the independence or autonomy of the Information Commission. We don't believe in sending everything to the standing committee unless necessary, because this government acts with a sense of purpose and with a sense of urgency. I will give you an example.
Mr. Sinha, 1 minute. I just want to come in. I just want to come in on one point you made. You said there is no proof so far that this will have a negative impact. There can be no evidence because the bill has just come into being. So from here on is when we will see an impact. There's no way to know at all by now. The concern is fairly commonsensical.
What I meant was that there is nothing in it.
That if someone is paying your salaries, will you be able to reveal information about that person, or in this case the government, if they're paying your salaries? Will you be hesitant to then do your job? That's the basic, fundamental argument.
Well, I don't agree with that, because at the same time, there would be necessary provisions to replace them. I mean, the tenure of them of these officials would be fixed. So I think even the election, I don't really see a direct link between these reforms, which are a regular administrative reform, and the fact that this could scuttle the independence or autonomy. There is absolutely nothing in it to suggest that.
Okay, let me widen the debate and let me bring Sanjay Jha here in today as a political analyst. But Sanjay, we all know that you do belong to the Congress party, and we spoke with Mr. Rajiv Gowda just a little while ago on this show. We asked him that why did all the Congress MPs in the Rajya Sabha walk out, effectively bringing down the numbers and ensuring the smooth passage of this bill. Was that the plan all along in your view? What do you think was going on?
Tamanna, I hope you read the public statement of Srimati Sonia Gandhi yesterday on the RTI bill. I mean, that is the Congress viewpoint. The question of having a collusion with this authoritarian government is a ridiculous proposition. Let me tell you what is the fundamental point that we should be discussing today is the political intent of the Narendra Modi government. Now, let me refresh the memory of the viewers, and I'm sure most of the panelists will already know that go back to 2014-15. Tamanna, at that point of time, India did not even have a chief information commissioner. Until the Delhi High Court and the Supreme Court of India intervened, Mr. Modi's government was not even concerned that the mounting RTI appeals were really escalating. And number two, that India's overall, RTI was becoming dysfunctional. This was the real objective of the Narendra Modi government. Point number two, I mean, let us not deny the Whistleblower Act. You got to look at all these historic legislation passed by the Congress-led UPA and how Narendra Modi's government has destroyed transparency and accountability.
No, but I want to talk about this evening. I want to talk about this evening. Sanjay Jha, I want to talk about this evening and what we've seen this evening. I'm afraid we will. No, but you were talking about the past. I want to talk about what happened this evening, because all of these points of opposition have been displayed and talked about by leaders from the Congress party in the past few days. Yet today there was no real opposition when it came to the votes. There was a walkout which effectively saw a smooth passage of this bill. You can also say that it may have been support from non-UPA or non-NDA parties, but they effectively managed it, and it may happen in the next bill as well. So what are you going to say about that?
Well, Tamanna, let me tell you, I cannot forecast what's going to happen tomorrow on different bills. I'm the wrong person to ask that question. But the point that I'm trying to make to you is, and because this is, by the way, in my opinion, concerns every citizen of this country. When the Congress passed the RTI Act, it was meant to empower the citizen and ensure that the state would have to be democratic, accountable and transparent. Narendra Modi's government, which gets a second big mandate, is trying to destroy that transparency. It is becoming opaque. Is it because nobody wants to talk about Narendra Modi's undergraduate qualifications in entire political science? I don't know. But the end of the day, we are becoming a liberal democracy. And I wonder, what is this government so paranoid about?
Let me get a quick
response
from Tuhin.
The government ought to be able to
let me get a quick response from
citizen
Tuhin
of this country,
yeah,
whatever they want.
Okay, let me get a quick response from Tuhin. Yes, Tuhin.
Well, it's easy for Mr. Jha to, get back to Narendra Modi's qualifications while Rahul Gandhi's whereabouts remain a mystery. So, he can go on with that. But my point remains that, you will see over a period of time whether at all the legislation today has impacted. And my sense and my belief remains the same, that it will not, that it will, that my belief and my sense remains the same, that this bit of legislation will not impact the functioning, the independence and the autonomy of the Information Commission at all.
Okay, it will not impact the autonomy of the Information Commissioner at all. I'm going to come to Tathagat Satpathy for his view on that. Is this a lot of hype? Will we have to wait and see whether there actually is an impact? In some quarters, there are fears saying that the RTI Act, as we've known it so far, has been, given a death blow with today's amendments. Is that an exaggeration in your view?
One or two points can I please quickly mention. First of all, 30th of May 2019, my BJD membership expired. I have not renewed it, so I do not belong to any political party. First. Second thing is, we as a nation are very adept at misutilizing anything that comes our way. Imagine the RTI Act, the concept was that an individual citizen, if he or she feels there is injustice or some wrongdoing in the government or affiliated organizations, they were free to file a small little fee and file an application and get the data as they had wanted, and the government was duty bound to supply it within a specific time. Then on the scene arrived a whole bunch of activists. I don't know what RTI activist implies. So these people started questioning the government on various things, and they never let out either to the media or to the public what they were asking and what were the replies. But the government machinery was busy replying. For the first few years, the government machinery was extremely busy responding to these RTI activists. Then comes a government. See, I believe that the UPA in its whole 10 years tenure did only one good thing, and that was the RTI thing. And then comes this government, which has now today removed the powers of the state, so hammered at the very base of federalism. And if you know anybody who has taken up a small little enterprise, the first thing that the entrepreneur does is pays the salaries of his staff himself. That is to bring about a loyalty, a sense of belonging, and a sense that this is my boss. I have to respond, respect, and reply to this man or this person or this organization. So whoever pays the salary is the boss. It's a very simple human mindset, I guess, and especially in a country like India. So if a government or individuals in a government, I believe in a democracy, nobody is permanent. It's always in a flux. There was a prime minister 10 years ago, there is a prime minister now, and there will be another prime minister maybe 10 years hence. We don't know. I don't know the future. But what I'm trying to say is, when you change the system, when you change the written law, then you are leaving the windows and the doors open for misutilization. So today's decision, today's passing of the RTI bill implies one thing in my mind, that now the RTI commissioners, whether in the state or the CIC here at the All India level, is a servant of the union government, federal government. Servant is a strong word, I apologize, is subservient to the union government, and that will tell us in the days to come how negative it can get.
Okay, so that is one point. The counter has often been that aren't there other public officials who have to discharge their duties, who also basically are under the government in terms of salary and tenure. That's often another counterpoint which comes in. But I want to get Manisha Priyam and Sanjeev Srivastav. Manisha, I'll come to you first on how you see the proceedings this evening, especially in the light of the fact that there has been an extension in this budget session. The government wants to push bills through and managed to do that fairly successfully with the RTI Amendment Act.
So, what is the impression that's going out to the people, the citizens who are watching the proceedings of the Lok Sabha, the citizens who are watching a new speaker with a new style of functioning, Om Birla, who's had no previous parliamentary experience? He's got his new style. Now, the people by and large believe that this government means business, and they've got these bills in the House. The time of the Lok Sabha is being extended. So, there was a critique that this current government had of the previous government, saying that a lot of time was wasted, no business was transacted, there was policy paralysis, and to that extent the critique that this government had made of its erstwhile predecessor, at least from the outside, the people get a feeling that this government means business and it wants to do put legislation on the floor of the House. Now, coming to the RTI Act itself, or any other act for that matter, I think there are two things here. One is the RTI legislation. I think this was too closely associated with the National Advisory Council, which was headed by Mrs. Sonia Gandhi herself. Now, to that extent, this is something that the Congress would certainly want to drag its feet on and say, look, we brought this bill out and this is a pro-citizen bill. They're right to do that because this is something that they put together. But on the other side, why should the BJP give the Congress any advantage on the amendments to the bill? Now, having made these points, is it correct therefore to drastically change or amend a bill such that its original intentions itself seem defeated? Now, information is a right of the citizen, especially if that information pertains to expenditure of public money, or it refers to matters of public interest, or it refers to matters where simply hiding information on that matter creates a disadvantage to the citizenry. Now, I do think here there should be non-partisan considerations. Forget the central government, where my erstwhile very learned colleague Shri Tathagat Satpathy said that the bureaucrats, there were activists who came out, there were bureaucrats who are being harassed answering RTIs. Sometimes there are lower level bureaucracies that have nothing to do with high level functioning of the government. And very simple matters, for example, how many water tankers have been provided for one particular unauthorized colony. You try and go and access an officer and ask these questions, the citizen is shown the door. So, what right does any citizen have even over issues of local public service delivery? So, I think there are layers to the functioning of governments. If I were to understand clearly that the government could demarcate and say, look, these areas seem to be where a lot of irrelevant RTI questions are hampering the functioning of the government, and look, these areas are where we have public service delivery at stake, then I would have understood. Now, I clearly don't understand that. Now, I'd like to conclude by saying that these kind of discussions should have happened on the floor of the House, or should have been allowed to flow into the select committee if so required, or into a standing committee if so required, and these discussions should have taken place, albeit always the party with the majority has the upper hand on really having what it wants passed on the Lok Sabha. Especially these are non-money bills, so you can rest assured that the party with a clear majority will have its way on the floor of the Lok Sabha.
Okay, now here the question is what happened in the Rajya Sabha, and ahead in the show we'll discuss in a little more detail that what the clear victory of the NDA today in the Rajya Sabha means for other controversial bills. But I want to stick to RTI for a little while longer. And Sanjeev, as a career journalist, we've seen the way RTI has transformed the access to information over the last few years. Is the fear that that change is now a valid one? And if you can just also highlight the significance of the RTI, we'll also show that on our screens. A number of important stories have come to light because of the RTI. Yes, Sanjeev.
Okay, so there is an old saying that don't fix something which is not broke. So there was one law, one system which was functioning very well for the last, since the time that RTI was introduced for nearly a decade and a half. And so this government is trying to fix a system which was actually doing quite well. So once you try and fix a system which is doing well, then obviously there are suspicions. And my friend and fellow panelist Manisha Priyam is usually so articulate, but today from her answer I didn't understand whether she supports the RTI amendments or is she opposed to it. So the bottom line is that by changing the character and scope of information commissioners, what my friend Tathagat Satpathy said, I am in complete agreement with him. You are just making redundant a law, Tamanna, which has given so many scoops to the media. Forget ordinary citizens. Of course, we are all supposed to be working for the ordinary citizen. But what will happen to the media? Where will your RTI queries go? This is one subject, honestly, on which no debate is possible. So, any debate on this, some people will have to defend it. They will give meandering and quite superficial kind of arguments. Because how can anybody defend any kind of diluting of the RTI law? Who does it benefit except the government? Why should they not want to share all the information? Why shouldn't the RTI queries be answered? And just because some laws can be misused and RTI law has been misused and abused, there have been cases, then every law, dowry law is being misused, theft law is being misused, people have been falsely framed for murder, riots, etc. So then we should dilute all laws. What kind of a logic is that? This is
Respond to that.
This is a no-brainer. But since now this is a no-brainer. But we can still endlessly debate how this is not being diluted, how it is all right to come out with these amendments, how actually the character is not being changed. So we can. I am happy if we want to fool ourselves with those kind of arguments and delude ourselves, that's fine. But gradually the whole system of our transparent, accountable system of RTI has been dealt today a body blow, and we all know it, whatever anybody says.
Tathagat, you want to respond to that? You want to respond to that, Tathagat?
No, I agreeing with Tathagat. What will he respond? That you only meddle with something that is troubling to you. No, I feel what you said is absolutely correct, that they are meddling with things which do not need meddling. But obviously this is the new India, so we all realize that in the new India, if you have a voice which differs from what a 303 rifle speaks, then so be it. So you cannot exist, you will be silenced. And if you start asking questions which are not comfortable only to the government, obviously they want to muzzle that questioning power, and therefore, as you said, that why mend something that is not broke? It was not broke, but it needed mending, and they have done it. So it's simple, and there is no. I don't think there is anything wrong, because this is the new India. We have to accept this. And I always believe people are correct.
No, 1 minute. Manisha Priyam, will you come in, because Sanjeev Srivastava made a very clear comment. He said, after listening to you, he was not sure whether you're for or against it. Do you want to come in and clarify your position?
So what is the position? The position simply is this, that the RTI Act empowers citizens in asking questions. If there are amendments being made to the RTI Act, they require to be deliberated upon, and even as on the floor of the House, the party that has the majority may be able to get its will, it is the right of the House itself to be able to send a legislation to greater deliberation. I am not the person who is going to, I neither made the act nor can I make the amendments to it. But if there are amendments to that act that are being debated, I don't know why my fellow panelists couldn't understand what I was saying. I am saying that if there is an opposition today, which is a reasoned opposition to the amendments in the bill, that reasoning cannot be done by me outside the parliament. Then the least that can be done is to send it to an arena where there is a cool-headed thinking. What is the job of the committees on any legislation?
Yeah.
All parliamentary systems, including presidential systems, where public interest matters are turned into legislation on the floor of the House, albeit the floor of the House is, made up of people who are directly elected by people or representatives of people, still have the scope for bills being sent to committees, and there need to be greater deliberation within the closed chamber of committees where each of these arguments is put forward. The RTI legislation, as I said very clearly, is very empowering, especially to the most disadvantaged citizens.
Okay.
What I do concede, however, is that this bill is considered the sine qua non of the Congress party and Mrs. Sonia Gandhi leading the NAC, the National Advisory Council, who put this. So, to the extent that this will be seen as a handiwork of the Congress government led by Mrs. Gandhi, the BJP is going to politically oppose this. So, which of these?
But they haven't. They're not saying they're against the RTI. They're saying they're just streamlining the process. They're not saying they're against the RTI. They're saying they're just streamlining the process and changing the tenure and salary structure is not going to make any difference. That's the claim. That's the claim. That's what Tuhin has just said. Wajahat.
No, but there are people saying that changing the tenure is leading to.
Can I come in over here?
Tamanna, can I answer you?
One minute. I know Tuhin and Sanjay just want to come in, but I want to get Wajahat Habibullah in. 1 minute. I just want to get Wajahat Habibullah in on a very, very important angle to all of this. I'm already seeing, reports and comments saying that this will go to the Supreme Court, this will be challenged. Do you see that happening? Is that now the next hope of, those pushing for the RTI to remain the way it was and RTI activists?
Well, that is whether it may be challenged in the courts. It may not be challenged in the courts. I don't know why you feel that is a matter of vital importance. The matter of vital importance is, and I think it has been expressed best by the Honourable Prime Minister himself when he was addressing the 10th anniversary convention, the National Convention of the Information Commissioners. He put it very clearly. He said this information, the Right to Information Act is of value to the government because the questions raised and the answers given show to the government as to how the government itself is working. And the Honourable Prime Minister Modi has repeatedly talked in terms of transparency and accountability. He's repeatedly raised the issue of minimum government, maximum government. What is the principal instrument for these purposes, both for transparency and maximum governance? The instrument is the Right to Information Act. Is there any other instrument? Can any of your members tell me any other instrument?
What's your
There
point,
is no other instrument. This is the instrument. Therefore, this instrument, now the point that I am making is, this instrument must function as a watchdog of the government itself.
Yeah.
And therefore, it must be outside the control of the bureaucrat. What has happened is, it's not so much, I would not accuse the political leadership necessarily of wanting to take political control, which has been the trend of your argument. But there is a measure of government control that is coming in for reasons that have been mentioned. And as Manisha ji clearly said, this law empowers the common man. Now, who is the person worst affected? Who is the person who is affected by the example that she gave of a tanker fetching water, or rations being drawn, or things of that nature? These are common folk. The questions that they ask are not going to affect the political leadership.
Yeah.
The questions they ask will affect a certain level of bureaucrat.
No, but the RTI's biggest scalps, the RTI's biggest scalps have been governments. The RTI's biggest scalps have been political leaders. CWG, 2G, Adarsh Housing Society scam, all of this came to the fore with RTI. It went a long way in demolishing the UPA.
Those are a few cases.
Yeah.
Please listen, those are a few cases which you are citing.
Yeah.
Those are a handful of cases. The largest array of cases comes in areas which concern the common man.
Okay.
As Manish is rightly pointing out, it concerns education, admission to schools,
Yes.
it concerns health facilities, it concerns most of all
So
ration
let's
cards.
let's
it
hope
concerns
those are not
basic
hampered.
facilities promised
Those-
by
let's-
government but not delivered to the people.
Okay, so let's
These
hope
are
that's not
questions that are asked
So let's
and
hope that's
answered
not
under the RTI.
let's hope that's not hampered. At least that's the claim. I'm going to take a very short break, but we're coming back with this debate because when we come back, yes, Mr. Habibullah is optimistic.
Your
but
optimism.
I want to come back to another important aspect that we must discuss today, which has been highlighted with the way the RTI Act or the amendment to the RTI Act has been passed in the Rajya Sabha, despite the NDA officially not having the numbers right now. Is that a template that we will see in the rest of this session? Remember, the other big controversial bill that will make its way sooner than later is the Triple Talaq bill. Has the BJP cracked the code of how to pass bills in the Rajya Sabha without having to wait for the numbers? We're coming back with that aspect of the discussion in a very short break. Don't go away.